Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Jean Ann Linville with Apex Benefits. I'm the manager of small group business, and today we're going to be learning about the importance of supplemental health benefits with Alan Sanders, the regional sales director at Reliance Matrix. So before we get started, I have a few housekeeping details to go over. Everyone is currently in listen mode only, and that'll be for the duration of the webinar. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat box located at the right-hand side of your screen. Presentation slides and resources can be downloaded to the right-hand side of your screen. And we'll get started. Alan?
That's awesome. Thanks for having me, Jean-Ann. So I wanted to start it off. I think, when we first started talking about this presentation, when we say supplemental health, there's so many acronyms in our business. So there's Worksite benefits and VB. And I think it's important, for us as we're looking at these benefits is I try to refer to them always as supplemental health. It's meant to, help supplement your health insurance plan. So as we go through those are supplemental health is synonymous with Worksite and VB, but all things that are meant to help enhance your medical benefits and cover your out-of-pocket expenses. So, what I wanted to touch base on during this time we have together is just a few things and just get into the nuts and bolts of what exactly am I talking about with supplemental health, why as an employer, it'd be important to offer supplemental health benefits, why you'd be interested in those things. And then for an employee, why they're important for an employee to participate in, take advantage of, with their employer. And just things, within a supplemental health program you need to look at when evaluating the plans and kind of where these things are going here in the future. So just the basics, right? So what is supplemental health, right? As I mentioned, they've gotten more popular over the past decade as employees are paying more risk is shifted to the employee, higher deductibles, higher out-of-pocket costs, and so the introduction of these benefits has helped cover those costs. And I call it the Aflac effect almost. They were early marketers of those. They spend over $100 million a year, advertising these products, and so it's something that as an employee they recognize them, from Deion Sanders on TV, talking about them, or but when it gets into working with what your employer offers, there are important benefits to look at, but not for everyone. So it's important to think about when they make sense and when they don't make sense. So just a few things I'm going to cover, when we get into these. So at a high level, when I talk supplemental health, there's three kind of benefit categories I would include in there. Hospital indemnity benefits. Hey, if you're hospitalized, critical illness, kind of as the name says, covers a major, health event that you have in your life, and then accident benefits, which would be just as the name says, anytime you go to a doctor due to an accident, when accident would pay out. So I include wellness and health screening in there because they're such an important part of these benefits. We often talk about them, but often embedded in these policies is chances to collect on benefits, by going and getting your screenings every year. So you'll hear me throw around HSA compatible versus non-compatible, portability, just some of those things as we go through this. I'd also lump cancer into this. Sometimes you see cancer broken out of a critical illness contract and offered separately. So, kind of those policies are all encompassing of what supplemental health is. So just from a high level, how they differ from your standard health benefits. And I would say, number one is they're not meant as a replacement for a major medical plan, right? As supplemental health, as the name says, are going to supplement your out-of-pocket expenses. They're indemnity-based products, and so when I say that, meaning they're going to pay a set amount of dollars out based on the diagnosis you have or the treatment you have, which may or may not cover the medical bill you have. So, for example, if I I go to urgent care because I, cut my finger at home, and urgent care charges me $100, and maybe my accident plan, pays me $150. Well, hey, I just made $50, right? But same thing, if my urgent care charged me $300, my accident plan still pays me $150. So it's just meant to help cover those out-of-pocket expenses with it. Um, there's a wide range of these policies in terms of how they differ. I think, with major medical, they've gotten very similar in terms of you got deductibles that can change and copay percentages, HSA versus non-HSA. But they all cover, preventative at 100%, right? And
Right.
so some of those things. So supplemental health can vary widely in terms of how rich or how value-based, these things are. So these are just a few examples I drew up of how they would work. This is a hospital indemnity plan. 70% of hospital claims are maternities, right? So it's an example I always use. You see it pays a flat amount out based on, someone going in and having a baby, 3 days in the hospital, and what it pays out on the baby. So same thing for accident. This just runs through an accident claim. Hey, you one of your children plays sports, they get injured playing sports. Just gives you an example of how those benefits pay out. It's based on a set payment amount based on the accident you had and the treatments you had. Same thing with the critical illness example right below that. A flat amount out that critical illness would pay based on a diagnosis with those. So it's high level where supplemental health falls. That makes sense, Gina?
Yes, it does.
I promised Gina I wouldn't quiz her during this, but she's in for a shot, right? So why would an employer want to offer supplemental health? So these are just some stats, just speaking to, from employee and employer perspective, what the discussion is every year of, hey, how do I control my medical costs? How do I cover my out of pocket? You know, one of the stats that sticks out to me is 63% of small business workers say they couldn't pay $1,000 in out of pocket cost. I think that's a real problem
Yes.
that people face every day. And so it's something that, we talk about HSA plans as, hey, these are great ways to save money, but I think, Jeanne, you'd agree, not everyone is funding HSA plans or taking advantage of those things. And so there's got to be alternatives.
Yeah.
So just from an employer perspective, just to help you understand, who's offering them and what size segment. So this was also part of the eye test, part of the program as well, right? So, but just to go through that grid a little bit, shows it's pretty even across all size segments of employers. But you can see towards the small end, less than 500 employees, those percentages can generally, decrease a little bit. So there's still an opportunity for employers, to offer these. Some of the stats, Eastbridge Consulting does a great job of pulling data together for these types of benefits. 78% of employers offer sub-health due to employee interest. So it's employees coming and asking about, hey, is there something that can help cover my out-of-pocket? Or, hey, I'm going to have a baby next year. What can I do to help cover that deductible? So it's driving some of that demand. Financial security, right? For changing our deductible or figuring out how to cover our deductible. Supplemental health can help with that. And then, part of that, if I, as an employer, I want my employees to stay around, and part of that is having a robust benefits package. So supplemental health is a good, easy way to go about doing that. So now here's some of the financial incentives that an employer may look at when they're looking at supplemental health. And one of the obvious ones, and I think it's Jeanne, this is your second quiz question. How often are you talking to your clients about increasing their medical benefits, making them richer? Probably not a lot, right?
Slim to none, yes.
Slim to none. So I think a lot of the discussion, if there's a renewal and the companies look at their budget, like how do we help control our costs? And one of those is, hey, we're going to increase our deductible. We're going to reduce our copays or whatever it is to help make those premium costs go down.
Yes.
And so that's where supplemental health can come in. Is, hey, we may be increasing your deductible, but we're going to offer these products, accident, critical illness, hospital, that you can choose to participate in that can help offset those costs, or even some employers are funding those on behalf of their clients. So it's made it a little easier, to pass along those benefit reductions to employees by offering these type of benefits alongside their medical plan. So, and then another big part of it, Jeannie and we're talking about this before our meeting today, is from a premium standpoint, is a lot of carriers that offer supplemental health are also offering, for example, for my company, Reliance Matrix, life and disability will reduce your employer cost if you offer supplemental health. And part of that is, hey, it's a better spread of risk for us, right? More lines of coverage, more chance that, we'll probably make up the profit we want to make. And it in general makes it for a better offering of there. So you see premium savings. The other big part of what I see supplemental health is it helps aggregate more premium together. So a lot of times you're able to fund different things for an employer. So technology subsidies, we often hear about those, but
right.
Hey, we'll help cover your employee navigator platform if you offer these products. Or hey, you want a decision support tool. Here's one way to do it is offer these products. So it could be one or two of these, or all three are good reasons why you see employers looking hard at offering these types of benefits. So
very good.
So jumping to the employee, it's a lot of the same reasons why an employee would want to offer or would want to enroll in these benefits. And again, I pulled some data from Eastbridge that I thought really looked at where the interest is for these benefits, and they kind of looked at kind of three categories. What I think as core benefits. Hey, your medical plan is your foundation for your benefit package. You can see, across all generations, they all see value in, major medical plan. But right below that, almost half across all generations agree that these supplemental or voluntary programs help. And it includes Worksite, there's supplemental health, includes supplemental health, but also additional life insurance and disability as reasons to offer that. So it just shows that there is demand there from an employee perspective. And so for employees, they enroll in these because it's a reasonable cost. Typically a supplemental health plan, depending on what you're buying, it's around $10 to $20 a month. Is what you're looking for in premium. It helps fill a gap in your medical plan. So, like I said, hey, I'm going to take the high deductible plan this year. What happens if I have a heart attack, or hey, my wife has a baby, or I think I'm going to blow through my deductible? How can I help cover that? So it makes sense for me to spend that 10 or 20 bucks a month to buy into one of these programs that can help offset those costs. So, and again, just some reasons for that Eastbridge outline. And then obviously through an employer, it's group rated, it's payroll deducted. It makes it really easy. A lot of times, I mentioned wellness earlier, wellness benefits are often included in these, meaning, hey, if I go get my glucose tested or, colonoscopy, those kind of things, I can get money back, from these plans. So it's not a lot, but depending on the premium, it can cover a significant portion of it. And it's a good thing to be aware of when you're enrolling in these things. So some of the things to think about when evaluating supplemental health, and this is one of the tough parts of offering these programs, is supplemental health has been around for a long time. I mean, Aflac started doing it in the late 80s. My company specifically, we didn't get into this business until 2010, so it's relatively young to the business. But these benefits have evolved so quickly because so many carriers, just like Reliance, have moved into these benefits that are offering traditional group benefits. So, your Guardians, your Principals, your Mutual of Omahas have all gotten in this business kind of to compete in here. And so it's made it a buyer's market, meaning that you can typically enhance your contracts, get better prices. So it's a good opportunity when evaluating these, not only to increase the benefits you have, but also just make sure that you're getting the most you can out of these. So some of the things I wanted to evaluate when you're looking at it is, hey, is there a need within your population for a supplemental health program? So, there's still some old organizations that have a $250 medical deductible, and hey, they pay 100% of it. Maybe not the best, maybe not the best prospect for these types of benefits. But hey, if you're increasing your deductible, or you feel like your employees would have trouble making ends meet if they max out their deductible, that's a good opportunity to look at offering these benefits.
Right.
The financial viability, I mentioned, those things I mentioned earlier from an employer perspective. You're talking about even medical carriers discounting medical premiums when you offer supplemental health.
Right.
Ancillary carriers like myself will discount your employer paid life and disability when you offer supplemental health. Hey, if you're looking to fund you want to have bin admin platform for people to go online and enroll, a lot of carriers will subsidize that too. So there's some financial incentives that we're offering, when you're looking at those. And so, and the other part of that is, I mentioned this at the bottom there is, consider what your current benefit program is. Again, supplemental health doesn't replace major medical, so you don't want to put it ahead of what I think are some core benefits. So are you offering a medical plan, right? So
Right.
let's start with that. Some of those core benefits that you really can't buy outside of your employer, like disability. To me, I think it's one of the more important benefits you can offer is disability. You offer a retirement program, so just look and see where you want supplemental health to stand, kind of in that benefit program. But it's a good kind of wraparound to all those benefits that are in there. So one of the things that is important is not every contract is the same. We were talking about an accident contract. There's 300 different triggers within an accident contract. There's on a critical illness contract, it could vary from 5 diagnoses covered to over 200 diagnoses covered. So it's important that you look under the hood of what is actually being covered in the policy and evaluate the cost and see if it makes sense from that. Because the worst thing that could happen is an employee purchases a supplemental health policy and they go in and they go to file a claim and it's not covered, right?
Right.
And so that just totally knocks down, any hope of being able to, any goodwill that employee has of having those benefits. So you got to look under the hood of your contract. And again, not everyone needs a supplemental health policy. So I think the average participation across the country is around 12% across all policies. But I've seen a lot that are in that 40 or 50% range, and down below that. It just depends on how it's being communicated. You just understand that not everyone will enroll because, you may not necessarily need it. So, and then it needs administered, right? You got to collect premium, you got to bill it, you got to enroll and terminate employees with that. So the other part is make sure when you're evaluating these policies that you avoid that limiting language that can occur in these. And I mentioned we got into the business in 2010. I think we're going through our 5th contract filing. So in, what is that, 15 years, we've refiled the product 5 times. And what I mean by that is we've looked at our contract and said, hey, how can we make this better? Based on, how these current plans run, how can we reduce those rates? And so there's a lot of things that have improved. When we started offering it, pre-existing limitations were a standard in everything we do. Now, I don't sell any supplemental health with a pre-existing limitation, right? And that includes every year, every anniversary thereafter, we'll allow people to come on without pre-existing. Wellness used to be a challenging thing. There used to be a list of what qualifies as wellness, a glucose test, colonoscopy, mammogram, those kind of things. Well, not everyone's doing that every year, even though we should. So how do you make that easier for employees to collect it? And then, especially if you cover your children, unless you want to put your kid through a stress test, you probably, it's probably hard to collect a wellness benefit for those. So a lot of carriers have went to anything preventative as a definition for wellness. And so made it easier to collect wellness. We've even went to where we've eliminated the requirement for an EOB or any documentation that you actually had to wellness. We just want to know, hey, when did you have it done? What test did you have it done? Did you go to the dentist? Perfect. We'll pay you your wellness benefit. So try to make it as easy as you can to collect those low-hanging fruit type benefits. And then there's a lot of language that is getting updated every year with carriers. And so, one of the things that comes up a lot, heart attack versus cardiac arrest. I didn't know there was a difference, but there is. So be careful to pay attention to your contract. Does it cover a heart attack or cardiac arrest or both? So just things like that to think about. A stroke. Like, hey, I didn't know for a lot of contracts, a stroke requires you to be evaluated 30 days after to figure out whether it qualifies as a stroke. So just some different things in your contract that's important you evaluate. And so I broke out some data points that Jean Ann and your team can use, you as an employer can use, but just make sure you're comparing what's important in a contract. So these are the most frequent accident claims that we're paying out, as well as the highest dollar amount of accident claims we pay out. So I would take this list, I would take the top 10 and say, hey, how do we compare on these top 10 triggers, either on frequency or volume? And so that's a good starting point when you're evaluating the contract. And so you can think about things like, hey, your chiropractor benefit is not as good as this other carrier's. Well, hey, chiropractor hardly ever gets paid out and it's a low dollar amount. Like, is that where we want to focus? Whereas we should be focusing on the fracture schedule. What's your wellness benefit? Is emergency room and urgent care paid the same or different? So just those kind of things. Focus on what's important when you're looking at those. And again, this is same thing for critical illness. What is the highest probability of diagnoses under a critical illness contract? And just make sure that you're evaluating these and make sure these policies include those important things in there. I mentioned before, sometimes carriers will break out cancer from their critical illness. I prefer it as one option, one buy-in. I don't want to have the employees choose between the two.
Right.
Because you can see cancer is a big driver of every claim under there. Skin cancer, it's 1/3 of the claims that we're paying from a frequency basis. Getting those things removed from your skin, those types of things. So important things to look at. And again, these are some high-level overviews of what we would compare versus Reliance Matrix versus an in-force contract. So again, just a high level, different things that as you go through side by side, making sure you're getting the most value for your contract. So I didn't mention hospital, 70% of hospital claims are maternity. So that's number one, how you pay maternity. So again, something to think about in that. So where are we going with these benefits? And so I had mentioned it's become such a crowded market. There's over 30 carriers offering supplemental health benefits. And you compare that to major medical, Jeannie, I imagine it's 5 or less that you have options to go to if you're trying to pick one.
That's about right.
And so there's a huge amount of carriers that are in it. And so it's made it a buyer's market to where carriers understand that they need to offer better contracts at lower rates. And I think one of the most important things that we're catching on to is we need to pay more claims. So one of the fundamental differences between supplemental health and major medical is, major medical, hey, you go to your doctor, they file the claim on your behalf, they get reimbursed, and then you get billed for any difference, right?
Right.
Where supplemental health, you're going home with that EOB, and it's your responsibility to file that claim, right? And so what we found is a lot of employees don't want to file. They don't want to take the time to go online or complete a form. And so a lot of energy is spent on how do we make it easier to get those claims paid.
Right.
And so, and there's no common theme when you hear claim integration. It varies widely of, hey, we may just let you know that you could qualify for a critical illness claim, or hey, if you submit a disability claim, we're automatically going to pay any supplemental health claim with it. And that's from an insurance carrier perspective, is making sure we find those claims and pay them proactively. So a lot of carriers, Reliance included, are tying it to the medical TPA or the medical carrier, being able to say, hey, I see you went to the doctor and submitted a medical claim. We're going to take that CPT code, that the doctor bills you from, and we're going to evaluate it and see if it qualifies under the supplemental health contracts, and we'll automatically pay those claims. So that's important when evaluating these plans, is how easy is it to file claims. One of the things that we're finding a lot of success with is we're finding supplemental health is tied a lot to a leave of absence. So if I'm taking off work for, my wife's having a baby and I file that FMLA claim, Reliance will look at it and say, hey, I see you're enrolled in the hospital indemnity. We're going to pay out the maternity claim under your hospital indemnity as well. So it's those kind of advantages that we're looking at to pay out those claims, automate it for the employee so that we're paying out every dollar that an employee is eligible to receive from those benefits. And so that's one of the more important things. increasing the things we're covering. I think, I think the stat on the earlier slide I saw from LIMRA, there's over 30 carriers offering supplemental health. About 27% are currently refiling that product. So what does that mean? They're adding more benefits, they're reducing rates. So if your worksite contract is, let's say, 5 years or older, yeah, it probably needs looked at again, just because these benefits have evolved so much over the years that just contracts have gotten better, prices have gotten better. These are some examples of new things we added to our critical illness contract that weren't on it before. So things like mental illness, was not, you wouldn't think of that as a critical illness. It's now can be covered under there.
Okay.
Fertility benefits. COVID-19 drove a lot of us, hey, what are you doing around infectious disease? And so, hey, now it's a trigger that needs included on our critical illness contracts. Things like stents and balloons and angioplasty on cardiac arrest, type claims.
Right.
Things that weren't covered before now are covered in there. So, just important to think about of where these benefits are going. And again, they're ever evolving. I think prices are going down, benefits are getting better. It's always good for the consumer. And so trying to make those more realistic, when you're evaluating these, is make sure that you're looking at apples to apples at
Right.
contracts, and making sure you're getting the best deal that you can for your employees. So here's a few different examples, I showed of, from a claim filing perspective, being proactive and making sure we're paying claims with that. So, but from a supplemental health perspective, I mean, I think it's a growing market, and I think it's a needed market, needed product that we have. It's important, number one, to evaluate, not every employee needs these. So I think we need to recognize that, number one, and make sure that we're educating the employees that do, making sure that they enroll. And then number two is getting the best contract price that you can. And number three is, how do we make sure that we pay out every claim that an employee is eligible for under a critical illness or a supplemental health contract? I have this stat from Reliance's own book of business. 11% of employees that are eligible for a wellness benefit file for the wellness benefit. So that means
only 11%.
Right. 90% of people out there that are probably in everything, pretty much everything qualifies, anything preventive. So we may not go to the doctor every year.
Eye exam. Dental exam.
Perfect.
Yeah.
COVID tests. All those things can qualify for a wellness benefit. We just don't go through the process of filing this. And so, hey, how can you make it easier? Maybe it's the employer submitting those. Maybe it's tying it to the medical carrier. Maybe it's from us, it's, let's just make it as easy as possible, that they just got to tell us when and where and how, and what tests they had, and let's pay those out. So just different ways to make these benefits more valuable, when you're evaluating these. So again, important benefits to look at, and
Yes.
and hopefully that helped.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate you being here. The carriers do want to pay your claims, so that's one thing we can keep webinars like this, and employers keep, not just at open enrollment time, but remind throughout the years you do have, or throughout the year, that you do have a wellness benefit. Don't forget to don't leave that money laying on the table. Be sure and file your claim for that, and helping them do so. So
Awesome.
very good. Now, if anybody has any questions, and we're getting a little bit low on time here, we'll be glad to connect with you. Just leave them in the chat box, and we'll get back with you with answers. And we thank you for your participation in this webinar today.